great to be here. My name is Tsao, and I'm one of the co-founders of Gobi. Gobi is a venture firm. We like to think of ourselves as building out the most interconnected Pan-Asian venture capital firm. We're currently in 13 locations all around Asia. We're pursuing what we call a continental venture capital strategy focused on the early stage. A little bit about my background. I'm what they call an ABC, an American-born Chinese. My parents are from China. Grew up on Long Island and had kind of an all-American upbringing, but I was very fortunate. My parents insisted that I speak Chinese when I was a kid, and I think that's been very helpful. Yeah, I think we invest differently in the different markets we operate in. So for example, in China, particularly the Greater Bay Area, what we call the GBA, we're focusing heavily into kind of deep tech, core technologies, because China is a little bit ahead of some of the other markets that we operate in, like Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is still very much into this, what I call the consumer middle class boom. So we're investing into a lot of the consumer internet technologies, whereas in China, we're investing a lot more into kind of the hard technologies, what I call technologies that will help China supersede, right? Technologies, for example, on semiconductors, enterprise, AI, even technologies, foundational technologies like databases. So we're doing that in China. In Southeast Asia, we're focused much more on, big consumer plays. So for example, e-commerce is something we're focusing very heavily on, particularly on e-commerce enablers. We've got companies like Synergy that are doing extremely well. We're big believers in logistics and of course, fintech, right? Serving the unbanked and the underbanked. Those are key themes in Southeast Asia. And then when you look at Pakistan, it's a little bit even different. Pakistan, everything's going on at the same time. And so in each of the key areas we're investing into, we have different themes that we're looking at and different sectors. Well, I think China is definitely a bit more mature. China's kind of undergoing kind of what I call a venture shift. The days where, what I call the consumer subsidization models, I think that's kind of falling a little bit by the wayside. I think China's looking for a different type of innovation, now really focused on kind of core technologies. So I think that's a trend we're seeing in China. Pakistan, I think, is one of the most exciting markets right now. Huge market, population of 220 million people. I know there's been a lot going on in the headlines there as well with the government change. I think venture capital is something that, regardless of which government's going to, take over, is something that's going to continue. And so I think Pakistani entrepreneurs are learning from what's going on in Asia, what's going on in the US, Europe. They're taking all these models and they're experimenting all at the same time. I recently got back from Pakistan, and it's very, very exciting. Very exciting things going on. I think the key thing is you got to understand those markets, right? Why are you expanding into those markets? And really understanding the competitive advantage that you bring. Is your startup bringing something that the current market doesn't have? I think many times startups just say, hey, I want to expand into this big market because I can increase my valuation, or that's what my investors want. That may not be the best reason, right? If you're expanding into China or other markets, what's the real reason? Is there a market need? When you look at the competitive landscape, do you have a product, a technology, or service that nobody else has? I think when you're entering into China, one of the first things to be aware of is China's a very competitive market. So really doing the competitive landscape analysis and the competitive mapping, I think, is absolutely critical. I think to myself, is this somebody that I want to be working with? In addition to the person being smart, high integrity, perseverance, these are all things you're looking for. But at the end of the day, just like the entrepreneur can pick the VC firm, venture capitalists like myself, it really comes down to chemistry, right? It's like, do you see yourself spending a lot of time with that person. Because what we do is every time we invest into a company, there's an opportunity cost. That means there's another company that I probably can't invest into. I've been doing this for now almost 30 years. If I can share, I think some of the traits, I think successful entrepreneurs that I've met at the early stage, they're very coachable. They're willing to listen, but they also know who's giving good advice and who's not giving good advice. So while they're very humble, they'll listen to everybody. I think the great entrepreneurs, they're very open. They're very good at asking for help and making people feel good to help them. But at the same time, although they seek a lot of advice, they're able to discern which is actually the better advice. You bring in 5 investors, 5 VCs, all 5 VCs will have different opinions on what to do. The key thing then is for the entrepreneur to really understand, which advice is the best. And that's hard, right? Because every VC can talk a good game, but what is really that good advice? I think the best entrepreneurs can really filter through that. Yeah, I don't think it's for everyone. In Chinese, it's you have to have a thick face. That means you got to be able to accept people telling you no. So I don't know, is that born or is that trained? I don't know. I have found though that many people who are very successful, who go to the right colleges, the investment banks or consulting firms, they may not necessarily be the best entrepreneurs because everything has been it's been a smooth ride. We really look for people who can deal with adversity. Because if you're going to do a startup, you're gonna hit some bumps. You're going to fall down, right? So what's the old saying? Fall down 7 times, get up 8. Can you do that? We've tried to standardize the journey of entrepreneurship. Oh, it's a cookie cutter. Oh, you go to get seed funding, go to an incubator, accelerator, blah, blah, blah. This is not getting a college degree. There's no set path. But I guarantee you, the greatest entrepreneurs, even if they fail once, twice, I don't know how many times, most of them have failed, but they can pick themselves up and they do it again, okay? And if you can't do that, or if you try once and you give up, and that's okay too. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You could go work with an entrepreneur or join a startup. Not everybody has to be an entrepreneur or be the president, right? Plenty of other good things to be doing. We are putting ESG into everything we're doing. I think in the future, nobody's going to say, do you have ESG or not? Everything is ESG. Even the early stage startup investors like ourselves, we have to start right at the beginning. It shouldn't be when the company gets really big that you say, oh, I care about ESG. We should care about it from day one. And so that's why we've signed on to the UN Compact, and we're trying to make ESG part of our due diligence and our investment selection process. I mean, my conclusion is venture is really becoming this kind of a part of economic policy. It's a policy tool. Every country needs to build out an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And when you look at it, every country's greatest natural resource, it's not how much oil you have, it's how many entrepreneurs do you have? Because they're the ones who can create new industries and create jobs. What I think does not change, even though there's a change in the leadership, the government and the country, every country needs more venture capital and entrepreneurs. So I think that's something that I feel like it's on an irreversible path. Well, I think being an entrepreneur is it's tough. There's nothing more rewarding, but nothing more challenging than embarking on this journey. So just make sure you're doing it for the right reason. I'm looking for entrepreneurs who would do what they're doing even if they weren't getting paid. Because those are the people who have the real passion. You can always sense the frauds. People who are doing it because they studied it, they said, oh, this is what a venture capitalist wants to invest into. So I'll create something. I'm not looking for that. What we're looking for are the entrepreneurs who have that real passion, that authenticity. They would do, even if they weren't getting paid or if they couldn't even raise any money, they would still do it because they feel compelled to do it. And those are the entrepreneurs that become the most successful.